if it's better than my connection last time, so I can avoid any of those issues. So yeah, welcome everyone to Engineering Weekly. For those of you that are going to be watching this later, please join us every week. It's posted on our GitHub as well as our docs and our Discord, but calls open to everyone, and we'd love more people to join from the community, both developers and non-developers, if they want to get information about where our project's headed. All right, I'm just pulling up the agenda here. Thanks, Anderson, for putting this together. It's awesome. Really appreciate that. The organization's been really helpful.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay, so yeah, I just want to go over some of the bigger commits this week and then new contributors also. Just to say thanks. I'm not sure how to pronounce this. Jintupi, this contributor on GitHub, made a huge commit this week that brought the coverage on the new website up significantly. So there's a huge amount of testing in place that'll be really important as we just kind of grow contributions there and to seamlessly merge PRs with that testing in place. So thank you so much for that commit. And then there was a few new contributors this week. We had 3, Kyle Wu, who helped us with some of the SEO upgrades to the Market Protocol website. Arun 1595 helped us again with some of the website cleanup for the dependencies so we can get some faster load times there. And then Gary Aka helped us with some of the cleanup of the URLs from the old www to the new top-level domain of marketprotocol.io. So that's all very awesome. Appreciate all the commits there. And then Eswar, do you want to talk about the DApp?
Sure. This week we quietly focused on getting the whitelist API integrated. So all the work that Robert has helped us with setting up the backend infrastructure for the API part. So we have integrated in the DApp front and kind of merged it. So that was one big step for us to have the deploy contract in place without along with the whitelist part as well. So apart from that, we also had some commits from Connor with respect to SIM exchange unit test coverage. So right now the coverage has been increased and it's pretty much stable for the DApp as well, in par with what we have for the website repo. So that's how things were for DApp. So going forward, on the DApp, I'll be focusing on before coming to DApp, so I'll be setting up the contributor guidelines. So there have been some basically a disconnect between contributors as well as us regarding the workflow we follow with respect to PRs and also the coding guidelines that are there in place. So that is one task for me to kind of remove the disconnect and kind of make sure that it's available for everyone. So that before raising a PR, they can review what are the contributing guidelines that we kind of follow for each and every repo. So I'll be working with Anderson with respect to that. So I think he has been doing a great job in setting up all the guidelines and etc. and putting them together in a place. So once that is done, so my major goals are to get the couple of PRs that are there rolling out. And also, so we have a couple of milestones planned. So I'll be kind of creating issues and creating tasks for them and kind of plan around what changes will be needed and what would be affected, etc. around that. So that will be the status. That will be the next plan for the DApp at least.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Is there any questions about that stuff or follow up there?
Yeah, just one quick question, and I'm trying to pull it up here. And I think, Phil, you created some milestones?
Correct, yeah.
And I figured out how to find those. That was really good yesterday.
They're hidden deep in GitHub.
So the beta release, is that information accurate, regardless if the milestones are being used or not, as far as June 4th? Is that what you're looking for?
Not exactly. So
just curious.
Yeah, so we initially planned alpha release for the whitelist API. So initially the goal was to kind of get the simulator exchange also in place. So that's the reason I have created the milestone of beta release. But I think we kind of moved the since you would be focusing on market.js. So the priority right now is to get the DApp, whatever it is, to be migrated to integrate with the market.js, and then go ahead with the simulator exchange so that it'll be easy for us rather than redoing the work of first come up with the features and then again integrate with market.js.
Okay.
So
Great.
that was the reason we kind of moved away. I'll update that milestone. Probably was planning to delete, but there was still a couple of tasks pending over there. So I kind of see how to kind of close that milestone also.
Awesome. I just wanted to, I saw that and I'm like, okay, that's interesting.
That was one of the older milestones.
Yeah.
Things constantly get revised here. It's a very iterative process. Yeah, so I mean, later in the call, I want to definitely take some time to talk about the project board, milestones, issues. I know that we all kind of want to talk about that, so let's definitely get there today on it. Cool. So I just want to go through the previous meetings to-do list and see where everything's at. So one of the things on the agenda was define the requirements for the expected methods and structure of the API. So that was for market.js. I have a little bit of structure in the README now for that repo. And also I've talked to Robert kind of about some of the business needs there. And I think at this point we've kind of talked about Robert taking over the lead on market.js and kind of being the owner of that product. So definitely can talk more about that as well and kind of some of the ownership ideas that we have on how to help the workflow. But in regards to that task was completed. Robert, do you want to talk about the create a how to work offline with our code?
Yeah, that's a work in progress, and I've got that. It's still on my list for today as well to start working through that. But essentially, it was geared more toward working with the serverless environment. So, as far as setting up, what does it mean to set up the Lambda execution environment? There's also some tools from AWS. It's called SAM. It's a server application. Gosh, I'm thinking of the M and I can't think of it. But anyhow, it's a set of guidelines and templates that AWS publishes. They have a CLI tool, which is great. It runs with Docker. And so you can do some simulating and testing of Lambda functions locally, which is really helpful, by the way. So I just wanted to get that better documented and putting it out into the README. So when others come across that, because could be anybody that might be working on the next serverless function, but at least that artifact and documentation will be there.
Cool. That's awesome. Thank you for that. And then the next thing on the list was, Anderson, you're going to take this creating and getting started, the getting started guide, kind of just update about the progress there.
Well, actually, I started late there, and I just shared the document with Isaro and Perfect Tuesday. So we haven't really started yet, but we are discussing already how to do that.
Cool. That's great. I think that'll be really helpful to get people up to speed. And then Patrick, do you want to talk about research and share updated information about SEO?
Yeah. Also, one comment about testing serverless locally. It's cool to have that README, but maybe this is already the case, but to have targets in the make file so people can invoke those commands might be useful.
So noted.
So on the SEO, what we did after the meeting last week was decompose some of the steps we wanted to take into issues, some of which fill stakes, some of which have been completed. I don't know if you've seen the spreadsheet, Phil, or if others have. I can attempt to share it, but I don't know how this will work in
Zoom.
1 second. Let's see. I'm trying to bring it up from photos. working.
It's the one that I sent out, right? I can try to find it if you want to give the update. I can try to get it posted in the chat.
Yeah, if you want to post it in the chat, I don't know if I can get the screen share work.
That's fine. I'll just post the link.
So basically, the bottom line is after implementing the title changes, the meta tag changes, we're seeing some improvements. Most of the key search terms have improved by, I don't know, 40 to 50%. Some of the more generic search terms we're not hitting on yet. So it's trending in the right direction. I don't know if it's making progress quickly enough. The other things that we can do have to do with restructuring the site content a little bit, and maybe bringing some of the content from the white paper into the site. One thing that Google's engine really values is quality, unique content. And from what I've read, you get credit for that mostly in PDFs, but potentially not as much as if that was some meaty content on the site in the actual pages with some navigation. The other thing we haven't done that could improve that is in the sitemap, you can tell the crawlers that the site spans both the docs domain and the market protocol.io main site, which might create a more solid connection between the PDFs and documentation that's on the other site that isn't necessarily obvious, that Google considers those a single entity when crawling the two. So that's where that's at. I don't know what you think, Phil, about the progress so far, and whether or not it makes sense to engage someone who's more of an expert at SEO, or continue with the rest of those tasks, or both.
So I really want to see what happens with the sitemap. I know that that's getting worked on as we speak. Someone just picked up the issue. So I think that bringing in docs.marketprotocol.io to that will definitely improve it. And it also gives us a really easy way to start pulling content out of those PDFs and into that format. There's a lot of stuff that I'd like to have in docs.marketprotocol.io that's not there yet. So I think that if we get points for that content, that would be a really, really easy way to continually grow our SEO there. And the other thing is that I don't know about is there any way to include our medium in that, in the same way that we would include docs.marketprotocol.io, or does it have to be the same root domain to count?
I don't know the answer to that. I guess when the sitemap is prepared, there are some sites that will validate the sitemap. So an obvious response to that would be if we get some errors saying you can't have in your domain sitemap properties that are in a completely different domain, that would be a clear indicator. Otherwise, I guess it doesn't hurt to try to tie it all together in sitemap.
Cool. I mean, Medium used to offer CNAMEs, so I know some of the projects like have blog.marketprotocol.io, and it's actually a CNAME for their Medium. But from what I understand, Medium stopped doing that, which is a bummer. It would have been a really easy way to integrate that content. So anyways, I think that, I think that's definitely good progress. We should keep working at it. I think that I've also recently looked at Google, and I want to also just work on the search results in terms of what's actually present there. I know that there's some ways to format that and add some of the sublinks and things of that nature. So it's also on my mind of kind of things to work on with that as we move forward.
Cool.
All right. Any more questions about SEO before we move on to project board and that whole wormhole?
I had one comment, and I don't know if it's more of an awareness tool, and I think it's really helpful. So inside of Chrome, if you go into the developer tools, there is an audit tab or audits tab. And I don't know if you guys ever heard of Lighthouse, but essentially you've got the main speed page tools site on for Google, but this actually I think is another deeper layer to take a look at what's specifically going on with the site. So the good news is that the SEO is up to 89. There's definitely some work that's been shown as far as just in structure wise. Obviously ranking is a different story, but taking a look at that. So just, go to market.io site, right click, go to developer tools, hit the audits tab, and then click on analyze. And so you'll get a ton of other stuff that could be really helpful in addition to what page speed insights provides.
Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely take a look at that. That's awesome.
And some of the stuff I'm not believing in the way of performance. And for example, first meaningful paint, in the close to the 8-second range, it doesn't seem accurate.
Yeah, I've saw those statistics before, especially on the mobile stuff. So, I mean, at some point, I definitely want to work on optimizations there. I know there's an open issue that is addressing that, which there's some comments, but not much traction on. So eventually it's something that we should work towards. Interesting enough, I just got first meaningful paint at 5 seconds. So maybe there's some variability there.
Yeah, because when I take a look at just a hard refresh, it's maybe a second. The 1,000 millisecond is really the marker for Google. As long as there's something meaningful there by 1,000 milliseconds, you're doing really well. And it seems to be right along those lines, at least from a visibility perspective. So I think maybe the way some of those assets are loading could be contributing to the longer first meaningful paint. So just throwing that out there.
Cool. Yeah, definitely something we should look into as we get past the SEO stuff and into more of that. All right. So Anderson, do you want to kick off the discussion about the project board and all of that, and then we can kind of just go from there with how we want to structure this going forward?
Yeah, sure. So the board now has an extra column, which is in review, right? It was the only one suggested to be added. The tricky part here is we need to move the tickets manually to that column. Okay, and everyone needs to agree on that, because there is no way to automate that part of like putting a label for in review and automatically change the issue. So we need to talk to everyone so everyone knows that they need to move also, actually, I was to talk to other people to check how they are really looking at the issues, if they are just going into the issues for a repository or if they are looking at the board, because that makes some difference, right? So if they are not looking at the board, they probably are not updating the status according to the columns, which is little bit tricky. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for adding the in review column. I personally am not using the board as much as I should be, right? I'm much more focused on individual repos. So I think that that's important. So I think that the things that we should talk through in general on that process is how we want to use milestones and kind of the best practice of integrating those to the board. From what I can see is that you can create those milestones, but there's no ability to put those milestones then on the project board. So you create a milestone, you can attach issues to that milestone. That milestone appears on the just on the kind of buried milestones tab, and
Somebody's breaking up.
Yeah, that was me, I think.
Yeah, from this.
Maybe not me.
Oh yeah, I understand. Anyway, so yeah, with respect to like the project board, so I have been using it quite a while, like for the app as well as website. So I've been like consistently moving them across the board. Like if someone has picked it up on GitHub, moving it to in progress, and like if it isn't, so as we close the PR or the issue, it automatically goes to done. So we don't need to handle it. So now that we have new review, then again it's another step which we manually handle. So yeah, I'm not sure who is going to take care of handling all this across all the repos that are there. So that is something also we need to kind of decide and figure out. So coming back to the milestones, yes. So milestones, we can only assign it to the issues. I don't think there is a way to kind of filter them out or something on the project board or kind of attach it on the project board. So yeah.
Right. So the milestones themselves could be added to a card on the project board with just links, but there's no like automated way to do that. I mean, my main goal with the milestones is we've talked a lot about making sure that open source contributors and internal team know the big ideas that we're trying to achieve. And so I want to make sure that we're providing that information, and milestones seems like the way to do that.
And also milestones help us to figure out, like, have a proper way to kind of have the production releases as well. Now we don't have a particular flow, like when the production release happen or something. Like whenever we need a feature to be on production like that. So going forward, we might need to have a proper plan, like on this particular date, we might have to do this particular release, which includes these particular features or bug fixes or whatever it is. So that is also something which we need to kind of organize and keep them in place.
Absolutely. So Anderson, I just muted you, and it seems to have removed all of the crazy static that I was hearing. Does everyone else have the same? Is it solved right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anderson, you're the problem, man. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe he's off the call for a second. Just chat if you want me to unmute you, Anderson. Okay, so yeah, so right now we have to figure out how to manually move cards from the columns to in review, and then we need a way to make sure that we incorporate milestones into the project board is the two issues that I see that we need to try to figure out the flow for.
You know, one of the things that it hit me yesterday was that both are actually, the milestone view and the project view are actually in some respects needed, because at the, you know, for example, trying to attempt to use the automation, what's the automation isn't really automation, because there are some steps to do to get it to work, like for a PR or even adding an issue to a particular project board. So let's just assume, for example, that is working. There's a bit of manual intervention on a regular basis for the quote unquote owners of these boards to make sure that the correct issues are where they need to be. The PRs are represented as well. The problem I was having with the project board is that it really didn't give anyone an idea of the actual priorities. Actually, this one's moving around, maybe because I didn't have permissions for that. So that's something that at least, okay, so the project board does allow for the moving of the issues, so that's really good. But those milestones, you know, it's maintained as a second view of the data, which I really hate to say that. The question is that can we work around that by just simply, like you said, Phil, just to get a note as an example on a column or somewhere in this. It's just really hard to know what constitutes what work constitutes a release, because you've got bug enhance, you've got bugs, you've got enhancements, and you have feature requests. And it's just really hard to know what goes in each one of those. So as much as I hate to say it, maintaining that second view on the milestone side of things is more like what I'll term the planning side of it, which is not really planning, but it's a placeholder, if you will, for, okay, this is the work that I know we need to get done. And as we see that, oh, this bug has to be stomped out before we go to release, things like that get added to it. So I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know if you guys, I know it's extra work, but it could be valuable to do that as well.
So let me just make sure I understand. You're saying that what we're doing as of yesterday, or essentially, milestones and the project board, trying to move forward with that and seeing how it works.
Yeah.
So I think that's fine. I'm much more interested in the iterative approach and like trying things for a week or two and seeing how they fit and how we like it before we just like throw a whole bunch of process on something that we don't really know if it'll work or not. So I'm good with that if others are. So we would try to use the project board alongside milestones and see where we end up.
Still static?
Oh, much better.
Okay. I changed. So one thing I was thinking, how would you like to see in a board both things together? That's I didn't get it. How would you expect to see the cards plus the milestones in the board? You would like, for example, just to filter the board and just see the tickets from the next milestone?
For me, my opinion would be is that there's a single board, and then what you have is that the work that's represented, depending upon how the columns are laid out, right, and what's in the columns, you kind of have the ice box, which is just everything. And as you pull things into the backlog, that's telling everyone, no, these things need to be worked on. And then you're going to define which specific issues, at least in the GitHub terminology, stories, issues, tasks, however we want to do it, that constitutes a release. And it's just a different view of the data. But since the GitHub is, its core functionalities all around the issues, any sort of roll up like that is just very cumbersome. It was, something, it was never intended to do what some of the other tools are doing out there. And quite frankly, I just think GitHub needs to buy one of them. Whether, there's really three of them. There's either Waffle, ZenHub, or CodeTree. There's HuBoard as well, but I don't think there's much there. One of those things just need to be purchased by them and integrated into there and just replace this milestone and project board.
And from those three, CodeTree is the only one that you can see from different repositories, right? Because the other two just one at a time.
I think all the three main ones there, I think all of them allow you to combine just if issues or PRs or anything you want to from different repos. But yes, it would have to be the ability, because in some respects, what you want to do is that there's a roll up that just happens as a result of saying, hey, for the market.js project, this is our milestone for a release, right? It's nice to see, at some level, by doing no additional work, obviously, what do the releases look like across all of the projects? So it's just a summary view without having to tax the developer by doing a lot of minutia on the work. Ideally, developers want to manage the issues themselves and get in to make sure that their hands are on the keyboards as much time. When you're doing planning, which is a function that's kind of distributed right now, but there will be a time where planning will be more of an integrated but separate function. You just need a different set of tools to be able to do that. And prioritization is the big one in planning. That's really prioritization and release management are the two things right now that could be very helpful.
Makes sense. One of the things that we could try as well is today all the tasks, all the open issues are in the to-do list, right? In the to-do column. And we are not really using the backlog for anything. Actually, we are using for different kinds of stuff, which would be one of the other topics of the agenda I would in my opinion, those topics that we are putting in the backlog today, which are more related actually to process, etc., those could be issues in the community. So we could discuss in the comments then, because there in those cards, there is no space for discussion, right? If you look at the backlog, there was those cards that are not issues. There is no space to discussion then. And if you would like to give some prioritization for those issues, you could simply put the ones with higher priority in the to-do column and remove the others to the backlog. Okay, just move back, because today everything is to be done, right, in the to-do column.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting on an important point, is that in some respects, I look at just I'll call it the icebox, because it's just a collection of issues. That's all of the issues. Let's say that they're untagged and not in a project. And then as the owner of the board, what I think would make sense is that we would pull the issues into the backlog that we believe need to be worked on. Now, they could be in a various state of repair, right? They might need a lot more definition or description or whatever might be there. But as soon as we decide that, yep, this is something that we want to work on, the owner would then move that into the to-do column, and that would also be prioritized as well. So that would be a simple way to be able to take and put a little bit of structure around what the backlog and the to-do column would mean. But that just means that the owner is, even the backlog, you're prioritizing the things that you want to get more definition on. And it's a daily activity. You just look at it and say, based upon some new information, I'm going to pull this issue up to the top of the list. And so then hopefully what happens is that the contributors, and obviously we have to make it very clear, is that if you want to figure out what's the next thing to work on, go to this board, and the issues are in priority order. So please select something more toward the higher part of the list, or obviously if there's a bounty attached to it, they'll know that right away too.
So, sorry.
For the icebox, you can also create a column if that's the case, right?
Yeah.
Because then we just add as a column an icebox, move everything for there, and then start using backlog and to-do list with more specific goals, right?
Yep. That's another option as well.
And the labels can also help that, right? They have priorities attached to them as well. So you can filter those cards right now by labels that have the highest priorities. So I think that's a good idea, right? Everything, like every new issue basically gets created, ends up in backlog. As we want them worked on, we drag them to do with a label, a priority label. And then hopefully that allows people to know what to grab, right? If it's in to do and high priority, then that's the first thing to get to grab if you're a contributor.
What is Sarah think about that?
Aswar, are you there?
Yeah, so I was about to share the same point. Since we already have in the docs mentioned, I think the URL kinds of already has the label as a filter for the priority. So I think that is fine. I mean, but I don't think like for someone who is kind of first time landing on this page would directly get to know they can filter based on the priority. But definitely if someone is coming from the docs, that is already kind of pre-applied or something. So that should be fine. But yeah, we definitely have to think through both the use cases as well. So.
But then what you can say to everyone is, only issues in the to-do list are open to be worked on. You cannot look at issues from backlog or icebox because they are not okay yet. Then it creates some kind of restriction on those issues.
Yeah, I understand. So ideally we have two labels. One is help wanted or status available. So we have a couple of labels around them. We can put a match of them and kind of throw out that URL in the docs. So I think the only usual place where people end up landing up on the project board is via the docs.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to kind of have the pre-applied filter, and in case we want to kind of share it across the Discord channel or somewhere, we can kind of use that URL with pre-filled applied filters. And that should be, that project board should be good to go, like for anyone who kind of want to see what are the tasks that are still available, like bounties that can be picked up, etc. So we never have to worry about backlog in that case, because backlog ideally wouldn't have those labels.
But can't we redirect everyone from Gitcoin, for example, to the board instead of direct them to the repos?
So you can just repeat that, Anderson?
Can we direct everyone from Gitcoin always to the board instead of directing them to the repos?
Not exactly, because so from Gitcoin, it's just a issue for which we are funding. So whenever they click view on GitHub, it always points to the particular issue for which the bounty is attached. So contributors are not kind of likely to go to the repo and see what other issues are also available. So that is, I'm not sure that is the kind of flow Gitcoiners right now follow. So
yeah, right now it's a little challenging because the first thing that any bounty hunter is going to see is the issue, and so getting them to the docs page with contributing guidelines as well as the project board is challenging. I already know that people are starting work on issues and not reading that stuff, and it's it is what it is, but that's definitely an issue that we're facing.
Yeah, and also Anderson, so like it doesn't make sense to rely upon Gitcoin for this, because through Gitcoin we do get contributors, but let's say most of them are initial first-time contributors. We definitely want the contributors who kind of believe in market protocol and help us in the future down the line. So it makes sense to kind of post this URL in Discord channel, the contributors who want to stick with us, rather than like posting it on Gitcoin, where first-time contributors like don't even understand what's happening. Like why do they want to see the project board, etc. So I don't see that use case or scenario popping up anywhere. So
yeah, I think that there's a and Phil, actually all of you guys have been doing a good job as far as just trying to educate the individual contributors when they come on board. And I think that from a moderation perspective, if we all agree that when a new person comes on board, whoever grabs that, is that we always do a couple of things, and one of which is that, hey, here's a link to the docs. Please read the contributor guidelines. Here is the project board. Here's some, as where I like your, the predefined URLs or some filters, right? Those are easy to create. So, and I'm just trying to think of, is there something we could pin with this information, or it would just be the standard thing that every new person gets? And sure, there are people that are just, going to avoid it, but we can continue to reinforce it. And if we do the same thing all together, I think we'll educate some people and get them going in the right direction.
So I think we should pin it to the Discord for sure. I'm not sure that people read all of the disclaimers that we're putting in issues these days, but I think absolutely when people start work, we get the notification, and I think immediately commenting on the issue with, hey, really happy that you're contributing to our project. You're a first-time contributor. Here's the guidelines. Here's XYZ. So they have them, and hopefully that's the next thing they read. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Sure. One more thing to add to that, like I'm not sure, does Discord also kind of have a welcome bot or something? So like we can kind of use that bot to like PM this particular, like, I mean, we are not sure who is going to join the channel. It can be anyone. So we can have a generic message with having all the sections, so that like whenever a person joins, they get a private DM from this particular bot with all these instructions that are there, URLs basically, which they can follow. Rather than like, I mean, pinning definitely helps, but a DM message will like makes a lot of sense to me. So
I totally agree with that. You can do, because there is that pinned message on the welcome board, right? With the general instructions that could come for DM. You could put a bot to do that, right?
Yeah, we absolutely could. The only problem I see there is not everyone who contributes gets to Discord, right? So we have lots of people that never end up in Discord. So that's the only issue there. It might be even better that if we were able to create a Gitcoin or a GitHub bot that commented on issues once the start work occurred, that did it there directly.
Yeah, but mostly I try to get people on Discord to have the conversations with respect to this. So like whenever someone starts working or has a questions around, I definitely direct them to Discord. But yeah, I mean that is
Absolutely.
also. But assuming that most of them do end up in our Discord channel, we can think about that also.
Yeah. I mean,
Another
yeah, so we could have both, right? I mean, that GitHub bot could say, hey, please come join our Discord. And then the Discord bot could then hit him with all the guidelines.
Sure.
Another very small detail you could try is in the template of the for
Yeah.
new issues, you always put the before you start working at the end. You could start with that before you start working, and then you talk about the issue itself.
Okay. I think that's I mean, let's just do that. I think that's a great idea. Let's do it immediately.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think we have some really great ideas here for this week. Let's try to implement some of them and again, just iterate, and see how things go. I think that's probably the best process for all this because it's constantly learning experience and constantly changing as we scale. I really appreciate all the comments there. And then maybe just before we wrap up, I want to talk about a few more things real quick, if that's okay to transition.
May I just ask something just to close this topic?
Sure.
Just because I mentioned but you guys didn't tell anything. Didn't tell anything. Maybe use community issues to talk about those backlog items instead of using the board. Can I move them from there? Because there's one from you, one from Patrick as well. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
Sounds great to me. Okay, cool. So let's move on a little bit. I know we're over what we expected here, but lots to talk about this week. So just looking at the agenda real quick. We talked a little bit about, let's just briefly hit on the GitHub repo ownership idea. I think that going forward, we're going to try to separate that a little bit to see how that works. So Esbar would take on the DApp, Robert would take on market.js, and I would take on the website as well as the protocol itself, market protocol, and just see how kind of separating some of that stuff works out. Not that there won't be overlap and help across all of it, but if that's a single point of contact for responding to issues, comments, creating issues, I think it'll help. So I just kind of want to briefly discuss that, and if there's any questions or thoughts on that process.
Yeah, so we forgot about the backend repo. Who is going to take care of that?
I can take that one as well.
Sure. So yeah, one more question I had was like, we haven't yet properly set up the Travis CI, etc. for the backend repo. So is this kind of still in to do or work in progress, or like we are kind of holding on that for now till we get how to work offline guide basically?
Yeah, I work in progress. I've got a. It's meaty, if you will, just because of the documentation is always interesting as far as just to try to replicate a series of steps. So but yes, that is the intent.
Sure. Awesome.
Cool. Okay, so that's that. We'll see how that works, and let's just again comment on it next week and see how that moved forward. And then one thing, just briefly, that I also wanted to bring up is just our expectations or expectations of contributors on us. And I know this has been brought up a few times, but if someone submits a PR, what they can expect from us. If someone asks a question to an issue, what they can expect from us in terms of how quickly we might respond, how quickly we'll try to get PRs merged. And I know this may not be exact, but I think that ideally we should try to say that, within 24 hours, not on weekends, but 24 business hours during the week, someone's going to respond to a PR, someone's going to respond to a question on an issue, to try to keep the turnaround time shorter. I think it's probably important for most bounty hunters that if they submit a PR that they know either they're going to get paid out right away, or they know what they need to work on in order to make sure they get paid out. So I just wanted to discuss that a little bit and maybe eventually put some documentation together around that as well.
Agreed.
Okay, cool. I mean, this doesn't need to be much, but I just think it's in general we should if we can strive for that 24-hour, that's really helpful. And even if it's to, hey, we're really swamped right now, we're going to get to this then. I think that'll be helpful. I know there was a few times that things just fall through the cracks. So I think it should be our goal across all of it. And then let's see, looking at the last part.
Just before moving on, so is it just like a 24-hour like kind of getting back to you kind of format we want to follow, or is it like we also kind of promise like the sooner we close this PR and get this paid out, or some such kind of things do we keep in mind or something?
Can you repeat the question? I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah. So let's say like there is a PR that is there right now. So I can just go ahead and kind of comment saying that I'll kind of take a look at it tomorrow, day after maybe. So that I kind of responded to them saying that okay, this is still like we'll be considering it in a while. But the thing is like for bounty hunters, I mean they might want to kind of close those PRs within 24 hours or 48 hours, right? So are we going to kind of throw that as well like out there like to meet the expectations?
I mean, I think that should be our goal, absolutely. I don't know that it'll always happen depending on how much is going on. So I think that, I mean, ideally, if we can respond to all those things in 24 hours and get PRs merged within 24 hours, 24 business hours, I think that's a really good goal for us to strive for. And if we fall short, then making sure at least that we're communicating that we're going to fall short on it so they can know what to expect would be my thought on that.
Sure. I mean, so normal days, usually it would be pretty much fine to kind of stick to that. But let's say when there are releases and like, or else like we are kind of having multiple things going on, it will be kind of pretty, or else there's a huge PR already out there. Other PRs will definitely fall back in line. So these kind of scenarios might occur from our experience in the past couple of weeks.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it will occur. I mean, it's going to happen from time to time. And again, like, as we scale, as we bring more internal help on, as we bring more community members into the core team, I think that'll help. I'm not too worried about one instance of it happening. I just think in general, the problem I see with the PRs, if there's a bunch sticking out there, is that as you merge them, everyone's got to rebase their PR to master, to be able to have it, clean commit history and all these things. And so there's this constant kind of back and forth that has to happen that gets cumbersome. So, it's just the way it is right now. But in general, I think that we're all on the same page of trying to expedite that process when we can.
Sure, definitely.
Cool. Robert, do you want to talk more about the comment that you made in there, or do we cover it already with some of the talk on the board?
I muted myself. Sorry. I just threw all that stuff out there because I knew it some form or fashion we'd get through it. And so we pretty much have covered it. My only remaining question was that did we also want to attempt, so it sounds like we have some structure around individual people managing the individual project boards. Outside of that, the milestones, did we want to take an attempt, and maybe not, maybe I can just try to do that and experiment with it. I think that it'd be nice to have a clearer view of these things go into this particular milestone and it's set for this date.
Yeah, I think we should all try to do that with our respective repos. I'm trying to do that with the website repo. I think we're at like maybe like a quick pause second where we've kind of cleared off a massive amount of PRs that were help get integrated. And so I think like taking a breather and trying to create a little bit more structure before we make that next sprint of staking issues, it would be helpful. So, I've created a few milestones with the website, attached a few issues to them. And then, the next round of staked issues will have milestones, and maybe that'll help, and we'll see how that process works. So I'm in favor of it, definitely.
Cool. Yeah, just thinking with the end in mind is like, doesn't have to be a release, doesn't have to be this huge thing. It's just we've done some work and we're going to release it, right? And that's all that it really means. There was that piece of it. And the other question I had was, is there, I'll just throw it out as far as, is there a column for PRs just because they're very visible then? Or is it just a matter of, hey, we got backed up and, it's like, hey, communicating with others to say, we're a little backed up right now. We will get to you. Just please be patient. I'm not sure which one of those would be or a combination of both.
So the in review column just got created on the project board. So if I'm understanding that correctly, the idea would be to move PRs there that need to be reviewed or under active review. So yeah, feel free to jump in, anyone, if I'm not understanding that correctly.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. We move when we finish coding, we move to waiting for review. I checked the cards that were in progress yesterday, but there was none of them waiting for a review. That's why I haven't moved any of them.
Yeah, actually there are a couple of them. I just moved them in DApp, which are there, and also there is one in website. We can do that. So basically, like, I think to do is kind of whenever we kind of create an issue in progress. Let's say if internal team member or a contributor from Gitcoin is kind of starting work on it, so we can then move that to in progress. And in review is when a PR is raised for the particular issue. And so done anyway, it's automatic. So like whenever you close a PR, the issue automatically closes, and it automatically moves in the project board to done state. So I think that's how we can use the project board.
And the project boards are going to be per repo, correct? There is the one on the overall organization, but it probably makes more sense to have it in the individual repos. Is that correct?
Yeah, so right now I am following that structure for DApp because DApp is kind of pretty huge already. Like it has multiple features, which makes sense to have a individual project board there. So I have like a project for each feature there. So
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, for website, it doesn't make sense to have a project board. We can directly put everything in market protocol. So for backend also, it should be fine because we don't have a lot of feature-wise structure over there. But for market.js, I feel a sense coming of having multiple things and probably a project board needed there as well. So you can plan around for that.
Okay, great. So that was a really good clarification point. So on a, we'll call them features, the project board itself represents that feature. That's the way you're designating the between the different boards.
So yes. Let's be clear though, because so originally we talked about creating one board that would basically provide clarity across all the different projects in the entire market protocol company repo, right? So all of the sub repos. So I guess so are we going to maintain two boards then? So there'll be a project board that is specific to a feature, and then all of those cards are also held in the market protocol parent as well. Is that the plan? We kind of talked about not doing it that way. So I just want to clarify and make sure that we're all on the same page with how we want to move forward with that.
Okay, so I don't think we had a discussion on fixing to one thing. So like I said, like for DApp, it kind of made sense to me so that I feel like kind of organized what's happening where exactly. So that's the reason I kind of had a feature-wise project board for DApp specifically. But yeah, so that's what again. So I feel kind of comfortable with having a sub repo so that like instead of me going to have to go to market protocol project board to see what features are there, what are in done, what are in kind of to-do state, it'd be easy for me to see on the feature-wise.
I have a suggestion, if this helps. I see the issue here. Would it make sense? It's really wherever the project boards are located at the parent level, at the organization level. It seems like we're able to pull across any issue to put it on the board. So would it make sense for us to say, hey, even though this board is specific, could be specific to a repo, we're still going to maintain the board at the organization level, just for you go to one place and you see all of the boards. And because it is at an organization level, you know, for example, if I'm working or as the DApp, if the DApp's dependent upon an issue inside of the back end, then that issue could be brought into the DApp project board, or that feature even for a DApp project, the project board. So, and because I'm assuming the project can only see the issues that are within that repo. So if I create a project board on the DApp, I can only see the DApp issues. If that's incorrect,
That's
then
correct.
there could be a different approach.
That is correct. So basically, like you can add, let's say if you have a repos level project board, you can only add issues from that repo to that particular project board.
So is this more of a just saying, hey, even though this project board is specific, say, to the DApp, we're still going to create it at an organizational level simply because we then have one place to go to see all of the boards across the projects. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm fine with having the sub projects as long as they're still one place, right? So if they're alongside the parent project board, then that's fine. I think, however we want to organize the sub repos doesn't matter, as long as there is that central place that we can all go and say, hey, look at all these issues that are in review or to do, and kind of be able to orchestrate the larger projects. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, it's the issue right now is there's just no roll up, and that would be really helpful to have. That's the one thing that just GitHub doesn't provide. So we just have to artificially create it in some ways by using the organizational project level, and then underneath that creating the boards, I think.
Actually, like, so now I think about it, like earlier we weren't using milestones. I think milestones kind of make more sense to kind of repo level organization rather than a project board for that. So I think we can kind of move away with project board for each repo based on feature also. Maybe it doesn't make sense because we can create milestones and have issues tracked for that milestones. So
That's, yeah. I mean, I think that the milestones and the sub repo project boards can provide the same functionality. It's just a matter of which we prefer, I think. Yeah.
It makes sense to have milestones because it's kind of time tracked also, and everything is in one place for me to kind of go and see what is done and what is not. Okay. So it makes sense to move away from the repo level project boards. Let me know if anyone has any other thoughts otherwise.
I have a few comments. So the project board at the top level, I think we can provide that same functionality. When you filter cards, you can say repo. If you wanted to just see DApp or website cards, you can filter using repo.
Right.
Another point is, if I can see how it's attractive to have project boards at the repo level. I mean, for someone who's working on a specific repo and the work is mostly isolated there, it's obviously going to be less cluttered. But on the other hand, if you're trying to orchestrate things across different repos, that functionality simply doesn't exist at the project repo level.
Yeah, definitely.
And then with the automation, so all of these would stay in sync if everything was automated. When new issues are created, they automatically populate to do. When they're completed, they move to done. Where we may run into problems is if someone's orchestrating things at the top level board, saying, okay, this issue has been taken on by such and such developer, we're moving it into in progress or in review. Any of those manual steps are going to get out of sync between the top level and the repo-based project if we try to maintain two separately.
That's correct.
Agreed. So I think let's try the milestones approach and see how that works. And we can use filters. We can even put in the READMEs, you could put a link that has a filter to the main project board with a filter for your repo for quick access. So there's a lot of cool functionality there. I think it's great to try that path.
Hey, Patrick, just one quick question on that. So when I was creating issues, I had to assign it to a specific project board, which makes sense. Then that enabled the automation. And so I didn't see a way to be able to automate that piece of it because, if, for example, someone else opens up an issue, the maintainer of that board just has to make sure that is actually been assigned to a project, because I'm pretty sure there's probably some issues out there that are unassigned.
Yeah, I found that to be true too.
Okay.
I don't know why it doesn't.
Like a default project or.
Yeah.
And the PRs were the same too. When I noticed that, you had to assign that to a project as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. So go ahead. I was going to try to wrap the call up.
Yeah, no, I know. So we agreed to. I just want to make sure that, because milestones are at a repo level, correct?
Yes.
Okay. They do not roll up, by the way.
Correct. They do not. We have to either do that manually by putting a card with a link, or just leaving them in the repos themselves. So there's no roll up feature right now.
Okay. And then we're having one project board, or having multiple ones at the parent root level? One. Okay. And we're going to use the filtering features.
Yes.
To be able to determine for which project as our roll up.
I think that's the best place. I think it's the best practice to try.
Yep.
We can revise it as we go, but then we can also filter, have one place that all the to-do issues are for across all the repos. So I think that it's just the best possible path forward to try and see if it works for the next few weeks, and we can revise.
Okay.
Awesome, guys. I really appreciate everyone's time today on the call. I think that this stuff's really important, and I think it's good that we've got kind of hammered out a process that'll help us all organize the work, especially as we bring more and more contributors in. So I really appreciate you guys' time and all the enthusiasm on different ways of organizing the project. So that's great. Is there anything else that's like absolutely urgent that we need to talk about before we hop off?
I just need some of your time this afternoon to chat. In the daily sync, I put some a block in there. You're my block.
Great. Yeah, no problem. We can figure that out. I have to hop on another call.
That's fine.
Call at 9. So really appreciate everyone, and I'm sure we'll talk again throughout the week.
See you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.